Hello, guys. Buenos dias, buenas tardes, or buenas noches. Welcome to another, yet another Spanish 101 video. Our topic today is our two first Spanish verbs of the course, los verbos ser y tener. Ser y tener, the verb ser and tener, or to be and to have. Okay? Let's start by remembering something we studied in the last video, the conjugation table of the verb to be. If you don't know what I mean by this conjugation table or the verb to be, please go back to the previous video in which I explained these things, okay? Because it's very important to understand them before watching this video. So here's the conjugation table for to be. I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you guys are, they are. So remember that the column on the left, what it does is list all possible subjects for a verb, and it's the list of personal pronouns, right? So before looking at the verb, let's look for a bit at those personal pronouns in Spanish. Okay, here they are. I is yo. Yo. Remember why? When it's not by itself, it has the j sound. So yo. You is tú. Tú. But there are some important things about tú that we will talk about in a second, right? Basically, tú is you, but just for one person. He is él. Él. Notice that it has an accent in the E, so try to pronounce it strongly. Él. And then she is ella. Ella. Not ella, right? Double L in Spanish sounds Jew, so ella. We is nosotros. Nosotros. You guys is ustedes. They is either ellos or ellas. Okay, ellas is used for groups of females, and then ellos for masculine groups or for mixed groups. Okay, let's look at those personal pronouns again. Yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas. Okay? Let me give you a few important facts about this list. One, you have to memorize it, of course. It's very, very important. We're going to use it a lot, right? And these are, if you think about it, very, very basic words. Okay? So memorize them. Notice that we have él for he and ella for she, right? But we don't have an equivalent for it. Okay? I guess we could say that eso is something like, right? But it doesn't work exactly like it, right? We don't have that type of word, right? It's either él or ella. Now it is much more importantly that we have different words for you when we mean one person, and you guys, or you when you refer to several people, right? In English, you can say, you're nice, right? You're nice. And it's not clear whether you're talking to one person or several people. That never happens in Spanish. We have different words for you and you guys. Okay? In English, you say you guys because you want to emphasize that you're talking to a group, right? Precisely because you have that. But in Spanish, they're entirely different words. Moreover, notice that the version I gave you for you guys, the version I gave you for addressing groups, is ustedes. This exists in Latin American Spanish, okay? In Spanish from Spain, they use a very different word, vosotros, right? And that form has its own verbal forms. You know, it's a whole different deal. We are not going to study that form in this course because this is Latin American Spanish, okay? But be aware that it exists. And someone from Latin America or from any Spanish speaking country is perfectly capable of understanding these forms and also typically of producing them, of saying them, right? But it's just not something that we use in everyday life. Since this is a course of the type of Spanish you are most likely to encounter in the US, right? And that is Latin American Spanish. We are using ustedes, not vosotros. But again, please be aware that vosotros exists, right? So those are the personal pronouns in Spanish. Yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas. Okay? Now finally we can look at a Spanish verb. The verb is ser. It means to be, right? To be or not to be, that is the question. Ser o no ser. Esa es la cuestión. That's the Spanish translation of the Shakespeare line, right? Ser. Let's look at ser. This table works exactly the same way that the table I showed you for to be, right? It has personal pronouns on the left and the right conjugation of the verb on the right. Let's pronounce them together. Yo soy. Remember, even if it's awkward to yell at your screen, just pronounce with me. This will help you learn it. Yo soy. Tú eres. Él es. Ella es. Nosotros somos. Ustedes son. Ellos son. Okay? Very, very important table. Memorize it. Okay? Memorize all these forms. In whatever manner you prefer, some people are visual learners, right? So they like having an index card that they can look at. Some people learn by speaking and hearing, so repeat it on the train, in the car, as you walk, whatever you prefer, right? Some people make short recordings of themselves reading it, and they listen to them, whatever you prefer, but memorize it. It's very important that you're able to produce immediately these forms, right? Yo soy, tú eres, él es, ella es, nosotros somos, ustedes son, ellos son. Okay? Notice the infinitive. We said that the infinitive is the form of the verb that refers to the action in general without anyone doing it, right? In English, it's to be, right? The form that has to. In Spanish, the infinitive always ends in ar, er, or ir, right? A-R-E-R or I-R. Here it ends in E-R, in er, ser, okay? So when you see a verb that ends in that, you know that it's the infinitive. And when you learn the meanings of verbs, the form you learn is the infinitive, right? So when I give you the first vocab list of verbs, you will see that all of them are in the infinitive. Notice something else about this table. Look at the column on the right. That's the one that shows you the conjugated forms of the verb. Notice that it's changing a lot, right? In English, in the equivalent table of English, we had four forms basically. We had am for I, we had four or three, actually three. We had am for I, we had is for he, she, it, and then everything else is are, right? Whereas here in Spanish, we have five forms, right? We have soy for yo, we have eres for tú, we have es for él and ella, we have somos for nosotros, we have son for ustedes and ellos, right? If this were Spanish from Spain, we would actually have six different forms, right? So the verb changes a lot depending on its subject. This is typical of Spanish, right? And it is one of the reasons why sometimes English speakers struggle with Spanish, right? That verbs change so much because in English you are used to not changing them that much, right? You almost always use the same form, Okay? But as I said, this is typical of Spanish and this is also very useful. In Spanish, it happens a lot, for example, that you don't say yo soy, you just say soy. Because if you notice, soy, I'm not talking about soy sauce, of course, I'm talking about soy as in I am, right? Soy already has the information of the action of to be and the information of who is doing the action. So you don't need to say yo. In English, you would always say I am, right? In Spanish, you can just say soy without saying yo. Right? That happens a lot that you omit in Spanish the personal pronoun because it's not necessary. Okay? So that is the verb to be. Ser. Yo soy, tú eres, él es, ella es, nosotros somos, ustedes son, ellos son. What do these mean? What does nosotros somos mean? Well, for this you have to remember that nosotros means we, so nosotros somos means we are, yes. What does tú eres mean? You are. You for one person, right? You are. Etc., etc. Now let's look at a second verb. The verb tener. Tener. That verb means to have. It also changes a lot depending on who's doing the action, right? So let's look at these forms. Yo tengo. That means I have. Yo tengo. Tú tienes. Tú tienes. Pronounce those vowels clearly, particularly when you have vowels that follow one another. Tú tienes. You have, right? You, one person. Él tiene. He has. Él tiene. Ella tiene. She has. Ella tiene. Nosotros tenemos. We have. Nosotros tenemos. Ustedes tienen. You guys have. Ustedes tienen. Ellos tienen. They have, right? Ellos tienen. This is the verb tener in Spanish. It means to have. So what does nosotros tenemos mean? It means we have. What does ellos tienen mean? It means they have. And so on and so forth, right? To sum up what we have studied in this video, we have the personal pronouns. Yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas. We have the verb to be. Yo soy, tú eres, él es, ella es, nosotros somos, ustedes son, ellos son. And we have the verb tener. Yo tengo, tú tienes, él tiene, ella tiene, nosotros tenemos, ustedes tienen, ellos tienen. All of this material you need to memorize, okay? It's very, very important. Muchas gracias, muchachos. Hasta luego.